President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has directed the provision of comprehensive medical care to the injured and instructed security and road safety authorities to implement measures to avert similar incidents. The president expressed deep sorrow over the fuel tanker explosion, which caused the death of over 80 people, with many also injured. He mourned the victims and expressed his condolences to the families affected, as well as to the government and people of Niger State. He underscores the tragic and preventable nature of the incident, as many victims were those scooping premium motor spirits, PMS, from the overturned tanker. President Tinubu advises citizens to exercise caution and avoid approaching accident sites, especially those involving fuel-laden vehicles due to their highly explosive nature. Meanwhile, the Federal Road Safety Commission has confirmed the burial of 73 charred bodies of victims of Saturday's fuel tanker explosion in Suleja, Niger State. The commission, through its acting sector commander, also confirmed that 3 victims died early Sunday. Arise correspondent Omo Bazwaye captures this morning, or the morning after the disaster.
The morning after an horrific fuel tanker explosion that claimed more than 70 lives early Saturday in Suleja, Niger State. Earliest callers at the scene are family and friends of dead victims, trying to get hold of any item, a bracelet, slippers, half-worn clothes or shoes, just about anything that can confirm the identity of their missing loved ones who have not returned home since the carnage. Others simply scavenge for whatever valuable is left in the heap of debris. This man, Abubakar Jubrin, owned a shop here where he grinds maize, millets, and other cereals, with 15 persons gainfully employed in the business. On that fateful day on Saturday, Jubrin watched helplessly the business he built for years razed to ashes in a twinkle of an eye.
I have many things about the grinding engines and mill and corn. I lost everything for here. I have the core room for ice block, more than just about the 30-something millions of I lost for in this place here. I have how many people where they can do work here, just like more than 15 people at all. They work about in this place here. So now I lost everything about in this.
Also on ground were accident investigators from the Federal Road Safety Commission as they sieve through the charred tankers in search for the likely cause of the disaster.
Drivers' inadequacies. The vehicle itself was not properly lashed. You know, the tanker and the tank itself, the trailer and the tank itself are supposed to be properly lashed. So that was not done. So when you see any small pothole, the vehicle will shake and the tanker went off.
The sector commander also confirmed to Arise News that 3 victims died on Sunday and that the 73 that died earlier were given mass burial on Saturday.
Here with a team of crash investigators led by myself, and to follow up to the hospital to find out if there are further casualties. Concerning the people we took to the hospital yesterday, there were 56 in number.
And you took to the hospital yesterday?
The hospital, yes, and 73 were buried.
73 of them buried?
Were buried yesterday at about 8 p.m.
Tragedy struck after a tanker loaded with fuel crashed in a bad portion of the highway. And in the process of trying to transfer the content into another tanker, some persons seized the opportunity to scoop for the spilled fuel.
What happened here, transloading that happened, there's a particular time of the day that we advise for such, activities not to happen. And this is part of our, guidelines, it's part of our standard operating procedures. So we need to create that public awareness. We also have the minimum industry safety training, for downstream operators that is being operated by the NMDPRA. And we are calling on all stakeholders, within this subsector to make sure that they have that minimum industry safety awareness training.
Several similar incidents have occurred on this same road. In 2019, 3 tanker explosions occurred, followed by another 3 a year after, with the last about 4 months ago. There has been effort, including attempts at legislations to stop tankers from moving during daytime, and awareness campaigns trying to discourage people from rushing to such scene to scoop for fuel.
From what I've seen here, it's very, very unfortunate. I don't know when our people will learn. Though those who have gone, they have gone. We should pray for them. And people are still living. People should learn their lesson. You understand? This thing happened in Jigawa, late last year. People should learn from that place. How much do you want to get from fuel? If it's an inflammable something, you should know this is dangerous. So I don't know, maybe who to blame. Is it government that need to sensitize people about this? That when there is fuel inflation, run away from it.
Arise News cannot independently verify that this was the moment before the blaze on Saturday. But the pattern of tragedy has continued to reoccur, with the lessons often lost on desperate citizens who rather die trying to scoop a gallon or two just to fend for themselves. Omo Bazwai, Arise News.
I thank you, Omo, for that report. Rufai, fortunately, we're welcoming you back on a very sad note. 80 people have died in Niger State. 256 is the number in just a little under a year. And a number of people, even you heard the man who spoke last, even giving suggestions as to why this occurs and what we could potentially do. But what's your take on this story?
I feel very sad, and my commiserations to the lives lost. Needless loss of life. I must have to reiterate. But I will be very forthright to tell you that it will happen again. And we are just minutes or months or seconds away from the next tanker disaster. Because we don't learn. And like I always say, culture will eat strategy for breakfast. As we speak today, Ayo, is there a directory for the number of tankers we have in Nigeria carrying fuel? Is there a directory of the condition or the state of these tankers? Do we know the working condition of the axle system, the brake pads and other things? Who checks all of these things? Even ordinary tankers that carry, articulated vehicles that carry other things at their back. Is there a directory for understanding how we do proper latching? So President Tinubu can say something should be done about it, but what is being done? If you don't put institutions in place to check these things, nothing will happen. Secondly, how can we ensure a prompt response by the fire agency and emergency agencies? Thirdly, yes, we keep saying when things like this happen, people should not go and scoop fuel. National Orientation Agency will probably come today and talk about that, which is a good one. But this 5 out of 6 times will happen. Because what is the response team that properly cordons off the area in times of things like this? So if we are quick to respond, cordon off the area, get security agents there, probably we might avert that to a bare minimum. I'm not going to justify and say it's because of poverty people come to scoop fuel, because that's also a suicide mission. But what is our effective response team? So if we are not ready to put all this in place, and in Nigeria I know, I'm not trying to be very diabolical by saying this, we'll not put all these things that I said in place in the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So you probably have more mayhem. Is it today we've been having things like this? I did an extensive documentary on Arise TV as regards the JC fire disaster. Many years on, have we learned from that fire disaster? No. So it will continue to happen. President Tinubu can talk all he wants, but except we change that culture of impunity, it will continue to happen. That's just it. So we need a condensation of many efforts to be able to avoid this. People will continue to die needlessly in this country unless something is being done. Are we ready? I don't see it on the horizon. All I just see we do is we know how to talk. We hold talks too much. We know how to talk. We know how to respond and say people should get to action. What are the paraphernalia in place? How do we even do breathalyzer checks on every tanker driver that comes out of a tanking unit? These are the questions we should ask.
Okay.
One of the major dilemmas that we have had to deal with in Nigeria, particularly at the downstream sector, is what is called the fuel scooping trend. And, the analysts date it back to October 17, 1998, when you had that JC fire incident in Ethiopia West local government area of Delta State. The issue was that ruptured pipeline, poorly maintained pipeline, was gushing out fuel, and the people went there to start scooping fuel. And at the end of the day, over 1,000 persons were incinerated, literally. And now, if that was a wake-up call for Nigerians to know how dangerous, an inflammable material like, petrol could be, it has not, the trend has not changed. And that's why this fuel scooping trend has continued over the years, either in Lagos or in other parts of the country. Once a tanker, capsizes and the fuel is gushing out, people just rush there with all kinds of weapons of attack, jerry cans, buckets, and other, scooping containers that they could use to have access to free fuel. And in almost every case, there's always been a case of incineration. The latest number in this incident that is being reported is 88, actually, because the number of casualties increased. Even the Suleja hospital could not contain, the casualties. Now, why are people scooping fuel? A number of reasons have been given. Now, I've seen some commentators saying, well, fuel price has gone up, because of that, they will scoop fuel. Well, even if fuel price was not over 1,000 naira, at those times when fuel price was just 100 naira, 70 naira per liter, people still scooped fuel and died. So is it poverty? Is it greed? Is it the mentality of the people, to just grab anything that they see that that is free? Two, the condition of the roads. Well, this has been the perennial argument. These containers, these fuel tankers, they get onto a bad patch of road, and then problem happens, not just to the people who go to scoop fuel. Sometimes other motorists on the road are affected. Infrastructure, like some of the bridges, are also affected. Now, the question to ask is, do we have a safety strategy? Has anybody done the needful in terms of rethinking road safety strategy for those transporting dangerous material? At a time, a state government came up with this idea that you can only move these materials at certain hours of the day, maybe at night when people are not there, and you cannot pass through certain roads. Government will do this for a while, and then people will forget. We will all move on until the next tragedy occurs. Now, two, the combination of road safety, Transporters Association, Drivers Association, they've always told us after every incident that they will pay more attention to safety considerations. Who goes to the motor parks or to the depots to check whether these drivers are even properly trained drivers or whether they can drive or not? Now, how do they transport fuel in other countries? What is the international best practice? I think it's also a sign of our development that, look, every moment you find fuel tankers, you find on large containers on the road, posing a threat to the safety of the ordinary Nigerian. I think that is also something that has to be addressed. Most of the reactions that I've seen from the government side is just rhetoric. It's just same of the same. What is the guarantee that government is going to take more proactive steps going forward? Finally, almost everybody that has commented on that report is saying, oh, the federal government, the president has directed the National Orientation Agency to enlighten the people, as if these people who go to scoop fuel, as if they don't know. I don't think the problem is about enlightenment. The problem is something much deeper, maybe psychological, about, grabbing anything that is free, anything that looks like a portion of the national cake. Oil, having oil the mentality of the average Nigerian. And there is very little that the National Orientation Agency can do in terms of awareness. What more awareness do you have to give any individual to say, don't go and commit suicide? I mean, as children, our mothers will take your hand, they will carry some hot material and just put it in your hand and say, don't ever go there. Another day, you will not go and touch that lantern. If you touch that lantern, they will have taught you how to carry it. So who are these adults scooping fuel, knowing that this is dangerous, and they just go and commit suicide? Look, anybody that is arrested for scooping fuel and endangering their lives and the lives of others should be arrested and prosecuted, because that is an act of sabotage, and it's also an act of self-immolation, which is not acceptable under the laws of Nigeria.
Well, I totally agree with you, Dr. Abati. But let me use the analogy you used about the child and the lantern. If the lantern is very hot but that's the only source of reading, and they need to read because there's no power, whether or not they'll keep on taking the risk, hoping that this time there'll be a better outcome. I say this because if we're going to talk about why people continue to scoop fuel, yes, people are aware. And to be honest, when I saw the directive to the National Orientation Agency, I didn't know to what extent that good, maybe to an extent. But if we don't deal with the root cause, which is poverty, this hunger and thirst. And I've spoken about the psychology of poverty, the psychology of lack, where even in the face of danger, it's like going to war. It's like, if I perish, I perish. Let me just go and see if today might be my lucky day. Let me go and scoop some fuel and make some money. That is the real cause. And so if we don't deal with that, we're going to continue having people going there, despite the amount of money that's going to be spent on orientation for people. But beyond that, I think it's also important to talk about the state of our roads. We heard the report where we said that the tanker wasn't properly latched, or the container wasn't properly latched to the tanker. And so once it meets a bad road, a small pothole, it disengages and it topples over, and then people are able to scramble to the site of the accident and scoop fuel. We have to also talk about the state of our roads and safety protocol for these tankers that are on our roads. A lot of these organizations who run these tankers get away with murder, literally. They are allowed to go on the road or put their vehicles on the road when it is in very poor condition. How many of us have driven behind a tanker that you know that any small, if you breathe on it or if you blow a little, blow your saliva or just air on it, it will topple over. So these are some of the things we must talk about. Safety standards must be upheld. Roads must be fixed. We must talk about the people, fixing the poverty levels of the people. If not, the psychology of poverty will continue to be a cycle, and we'll continue to see these backward, actions and behaviors from people. It's really sad. Our condolences to the people of Niger State. This is the first incident since September. We had one in Ibadan. We had the other in Niger State, September last year. We had the one that killed 144 people at least in Jigawa in October last year. 3 months later, we're talking about 80 or over 80 people being dead. It's a cause for national, emergency and, a response from the federal government, absolutely. Well, that's all we can take this morning. We'll continue to talk about this. We have the Director General of the NOA coming to join us later on, and hopefully we'll be able to discuss this further.